So we've got our ice water. All right, then I'll take a tablespoon of the citric acid, ascorbic acid mix and put a tablespoon to about 3/4 of water for the apple slices. And then I'll add a 1/4 teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon anytime I fill it up and empty it. So we're going to start with some peeled cored apples, and we're going to cut them up into cubes to make a pie with, and some sauce that we're going to try freeze drying. All right, that's nice. All right, so I'm going to cut these in case part of the core is in there. So that happens with some of the apples that have a bigger core, or if it's an off-center core. Okay, so I'm going to go with that kind of little pieces. And where the core areas are, I'm going to cut on both sides of that. And then cut that little piece of core out, because that won't be as tasty in a pie or a filling. Okay, so keep peeling and coring until we get a big quantity of them in the bowl, and we'll let them soak in there for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll strain them out of there. So this was from a core just a couple of apples ago, and so it turns brown pretty quickly without that mixture. So I want to make enough of this that I can use some of it for experimenting with freeze drying and rehydrating. Oh, that looks like a lot more than I expected. So I'll drain that out a bit. Well, yeah, that's going to be a decent amount in there already. Good. All right, so I've got them all out of there. Okay, I've got 3 pounds of the diced apples now. And I'm going to add a cup of water to start with, and we'll adjust it if it needs it. So starting with 1 cup of water, I might need more, but I want it to be fairly thick. Okay, I'm going to turn that on, get it simmering. So I want to cook them just enough till they just start to get soft. They're nice and hot. And then add some sugar and thickener, and I'm going to use part of it in a pie crust and part of it for a freeze dry test. So to a 1/2 cup of sugar, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of the Instant ClearJel. Okay, and mix that all around and set that aside for a few minutes till ready for the fruit. The apples have been simmering slowly for about 15-20 minutes now. And they've really started to cook down a bit, release a lot of water. So instead of adding any water, I'm going to use that juice there. I'm going to add the spiced apple cider mixes to it. I'm going to do 2 of these. And sprinkle that in there and stir it in. That'll add some sweetness and some great flavor. I'm going to add a 3rd packet. There's quite a lot of juice in there. So I think it needs to cook just a bit more, but not a whole lot, but I do want them more tender than that for a pie filling. Worst that happens, you end up with delicious applesauce. It's a lot of liquid. So 1/2 cup of sugar and 3 tablespoons of Instant Gel might not be enough. So this time I have just a 1/4 cup of sugar with 3 tablespoons of the Instant ClearJel, because I'm afraid of getting it too sweet. I should have had more instant gel with the sugar or added that to the spiced apple cider mix stuff. So I'd get more thickening without adding too much sweetness. Looks nice and beautiful and smooth still, so let's keep going. Okay, so this will be a total of 3/4 cup of sugar and 6 tablespoons of the Instant ClearJel in this size batch. And we'll see what that does. Now we're going to pour that into a graham cracker pie shell, a pre-made graham cracker pie crust. And I'm going to just spoon a bunch of that in there. So little apple bits in there. And then the rest of this, I'm going to put in a pan for pre-freezing and then putting in the freeze dryer. We can test out rehydrating it and see if it works. Okay, 250 grams, that's what we usually use on each side of one of these. That's what I'm going to do here. Just level it out. All right, and then that can go in the freezer for pre-freezing. Got a little bit more. Go ahead and put that on the other side. I just have a little piece there to try out. Okay, now into the freezer for pre-freezing and then freeze drying. Well, it's the next morning. The pie has had a chance to hang out for a while. I don't know if that's necessary, but I'm going to see if it will cut. Oh, that seems like it's kind of gelled. So I'm going to try to take a piece out and see what happens. So this is a graham cracker crust. I don't know how that's going to work. I'm going to make it hopefully the right width to pull this out of there. Oh, that's not bad. I didn't get it out perfectly, but that's not too bad. Okay, I want to try just a piece of the filling first. Wow, I was afraid that the apples were going to get applesaucey, but they still have good body to them. That's not bad with this graham cracker crust. That worked pretty well. Super close up on some pie. Okay, so these are the apple filling that I tried. And I'm going to see how those, they froze well and thawed well. And thickness stayed. So now, will it rehydrate? All right, so those are ready for the freeze dryer and going in. Okay, got the cart of apples over here. Now, get them in the freeze dryer. So it's very well chilled. They'll continue to freeze, and then when the freeze cycle is done, freeze drying will start. So the final drying is done. I'm going to start turning things off, make it a little quieter in here. I'll open the drain valve. Okay, there's the pie filling with the thickener. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. Here's the sample of the pie filling with the Instant ClearJel. It looks very well dried. It looks great. So this was 500 grams. No, this was 250 grams. So I'm going to keep both of these out for rehydrating test. So we'll take these and rehydrate them and see if the thickener still functions. Okay, it's time to do a test with the pie filling with the Instant ClearJel thickener. Okay, it's been frozen and then freeze dried. Now I'm going to try rehydrating it and see if the thickener part works, because that seems to be what fails with the freeze thaw cycle. So this should weigh 250 grams when the water is back in it. So I'm going to just put it in the bowl. And if you were doing something like a gravy or something, then you could crush it up, and that would help a lot. But with these, with the apple chunks, I don't want to crush it up. I don't want to break all the apples into bits. So it's a little bit more difficult to make this work for me. So I'm going to break it up a little bit so I can get it down at the bottom of the bowl. So I'm going to break off the corners. And then we'll kind of lay these other pieces around and get that piece on top. I'll maybe break that a little bit too. Again, I don't want to break it too much because I want the apples to be as big a pieces as possible. But it also needs to rehydrate, so I don't know how it's all going to work out. Okay, so it's 69 grams and it needs to be 250 grams. So I'm going to add enough water until we get to 250 grams. And I might stop a little bit early just to make sure. But I'll keep checking it. Just make sure I don't go over the 250. Okay, nailed it. Now to help keep that in the water, I'm going to put it in a bag and then suck out the air to help push that down and see if that will work. I mean, I don't really know what's needed, but I figure that way I think it'll help keep it pushed down, and maybe that'll help. And I just used cold water, just cold tap water, and then I think I'm going to put it in the refrigerator as it rehydrates. All right, that brought the water all the way up to this area here. So I think that's got a good chance to keep it down. And then I'll check back in maybe half hour. It's been more than 30 minutes because I had to go for our walk. Haven't missed a walk in over 3.5 years. Can't miss it now. So it's been in the refrigerator and stir it up now. I can feel dry spots in the middle still, but I can also feel some of the thickness of the gel. So I think it's going to be okay once it finishes rehydrating. This is very promising. And even if it's not quite as thick, I could live with that because I could thicken it some more afterwards. But I can feel dry spots in it still. There's a lump right there that's still dry. Probably should have stirred it earlier to get it to more distributed sooner. I'm going to give that a while longer in the refrigerator and see how that continues to work out. The pie filling stuff has had overnight to rehydrate in the refrigerator, or overnight in the refrigerator to rehydrate, and it is great. That is, the thickener really did well with the freezing and then freeze drying and then rehydrating. That is nice and thick. That would be great in shells or topping on ice cream. Anyway, really worked well. Just give it a good amount of time to rehydrate so that the apples or the fruit, I think some of the other fruits would probably be faster, like strawberries, so I probably will do more of this with other things. But that came out really, really nice and really delicious.